Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome once more to another podcast of Alexandra Mayers, Just Some Thoughts. Now, whew, I think we all need to breathe this evening because this week has basically been a roller coaster ride from hell when it comes to the political news. Now, first off, earlier this week, Donald Trump had the nerve to publicly state that he considers himself a quote unquote nationalist. I personally do not think that was a good move for him to make by stating that because a lot of people equate the term nationalist with the term white nationalist. And in turn, they equate the term white nationalist with the term white supremacist. And in turn, a lot of people equate the term white supremacist with the term neo-Nazi. So by Trump saying, hey, I consider myself a nationalist, it's like he was trying to normalize and condone the activity and the hatred of neo-Nazis. I couldn't believe that he said that, but then again, since Trump has taken office, it's been like the Twilight Zone every day, hasn't it? So, immediately after Trump labeled himself a quote unquote nationalist, all of a sudden we're hearing about these mysterious packages that appear to be bombs sent to quite a few Democratic leaders. And that right there, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And as soon as I saw the news about that, I was thinking to myself, now come on. In this day and age, the FBI is not going to be on top of that. They can't track down who's doing this. And I tweeted about it. Well, I think a lot of people tweeted about it. And I think that got the FBI moving because as of this morning, the FBI tracked down the alleged perpetrator or the suspect behind these mysterious packages. And here's where it gets weird. All right. It's a guy who initially was named by the mainstream media as Caesar Sayok. Sayok. I actually thought it was spelled Sayok at first, but no. Caesar, Cesar, Sayok. And initially they were saying that he was Native American of the Seminole tribe. And I saw his picture, and immediately I thought to myself, that doesn't look like a Native American to me. All right. Now, I mean, you can look any kind of way and be of any ethnic group. That's something I know, especially as an African American woman. But I actually live very close to where this suspect was apprehended. And I also happen to be very familiar with the Seminole tribe of Florida and the Seminole people because I grew up around quite a few where I live in South Florida. So I'm looking at the picture of this guy and I'm thinking, well, he's definitely not full-blooded Seminole. So I started searching on Twitter to see what other people were saying about this person. And immediately I saw another name linked to his. And not just on Twitter and on social media, but on a lot of mainstream media news sources. They were saying that he was also known as Caesar Altieri Randazzo. Now, when I saw the name Randazzo, I immediately thought about Randazza Legal Group, whose managing partner, whose last name is Randazza, is a man of Sicilian or Italian descent. So I went to Google and I ran a search on the name Randazzo to see if it was of the same ethnic origin. Sure enough, it was. So I tweeted that. And I just started looking on the internet to see what was linked to the name Caesar Randazzo. And I guess other people were too, because a lot of people started pointing me via my Twitter account in the direction of a Facebook page where it was obviously a Facebook page of photographs of this man that the mainstream media was labeling as a Native American, known as Caesar Sayoc, but he was using the name Caesar Randazzo, and he was at some sort of a nightclub or restaurant called Randazzo's up in Minneapolis. So it's questionable as to whether or not his actual last name is Randazzo or if his last name is the middle name that he used, Altieri, because so far it seems that there's about 5 names associated with this individual. But the point is that his fingerprints have been linked to these suspicious packages, which have appeared to be bombs. And this particular man is a very verbal Trump supporter. There's video footage of him at various Trump rallies, photographs of him at various Trump events. But again, he just didn't appear to be Seminole to me. So as the day went on today, I kept checking the news to see what kind of updates there would be. And then finally, it comes out that he's not Native American. First off, the official Seminole Tribe Council has issued a statement saying that there is no evidence or record of him being a part of the Seminole tribe, nor is there any evidence of him working at any of their casinos, which is what was initially reported. Fortunately, Rolling Stone magazine and rollingstone.com has posted a statement and posted an article reflecting these claims. But it did come out that his parents, his mother at least, is a white American woman of Italian descent, and his father is of Filipino origin. So, immediately I felt like, okay, my followers need to know this information. So I tweeted my findings, and immediately someone, and I'm not going to say the Twitter handle, but if you follow my Twitter, you can see who it is. Someone very vehemently tweeted me denying that the Caesar individual is a white American. So I responded, I'm like, well, from the pictures that I'm looking at in his previous mugshots, without a doubt, he is white. First off, it's been reported that his mother is Italian, white American, so she would have no choice but to give birth to a white child. His father is supposed to be a Filipino immigrant, but he doesn't even look like he's full Filipino to me. He looks like he may be half Filipino. But this particular Twitter person kept tweeting me, he's not white, he's not white. And then it hit me. I'm like, well, okay, maybe this is a white nationalist or a white supremacist tweeting me. So from their perspective, if this is someone who is multiracial but half white, this individual would not be seen as white. And that leads us to the question, what exactly is white today? Because I think that maybe the definition does need to be revamped. And here's my reason for thinking this. Today, there are a lot of people of various racial mixtures from various countries, of various cultures, who define themselves as white, even though they may not be of Nordic European descent. The individual who was tweeting me saying that the Caesar character is not white, I was like, well, you know what? Maybe from your perspective, he's not white. Fine. But I'll tell you this. If you take this man, considering his look, and you were to place him in Africa, he would be viewed as white. If you were to put him in Brazil, he would likely be viewed as white. Here in South Florida, he easily would be defined as white. There's a lot of people in South Florida to where they are very brown, But because in their countries of origin, they are viewed as white, as soon as they come to America, as soon as they step off the boat or step off the plane and they fill out their immigration paperwork or their visa paperwork, they check that box that says white. So white is kind of perspective. And another thing that I think a lot of people who are white supremacists or white nationalists may want to think about is that quite a few white men, American white men who are undeniably white, maybe they're from the Midwest of, I don't know, English descent, Scottish descent, Norwegian descent, white American guys, they are often importing women from South America, Southeast Asia, all sorts of places who are brown women. You know, just take a look at that mainstream television show. What's it called? 90 Day Fiance. That's the thing right now. These mail order brides. I mean, look at Donald Trump. He's got he has a wife who is not American born. She's an immigrant. I guess she's white. I've never seen a DNA test. To me, she actually looks like she could be Eurasian, of Asiatic descent, especially considering how almond her eyes are. Yes, her eyes are blue. But when I look at her, to me, she looks like she could be half Japanese. That's just my perspective. But, you know, just to continue, you have a lot of white American men importing little brown women from various places, having families with these women. They're marrying the women, having children with these women. But these white American men, and many of them are Trump supporters, they are labeling and defining their children as white. They teach their children to believe without a doubt that they are white, regardless of what they look like superficially. So these children are going to grow up and they're going to define themselves as white. So to say that this Caesar Sayoc or Caesar Altieri or Caesar Randazzo, whatever his name is not white, really doesn't make any sense. Because if the two people who I saw on social media who appear to be his parents are indeed his parents, then he can claim to be white, because his mother, the woman who appears to be his mother at least, is an extremely, undeniably white woman with red hair, who the mainstream media has already said is of Italian descent. The father, again, is apparently of Filipino descent, but a lot of people in America would consider him white with a dark complexion. So, I mean, I asked this person who tweeted me, who seemed to be very attuned to race. I'm like, so are we going back to the days, before the American Civil War, to where the one drop rule is in place? And I think that kind of freaked him out when I said that. But it's like, okay, so are you just going to go by the father's background in regards to defining what's white? Is that where we are now? I didn't tweet that, but that's what I was thinking. Because if that's the case, you're going to have a lot of Americans who are children now, or who might already be adults, who are very offended and very upset if we're going to reenact a one drop rule when it comes to defining what's white and what's not. So that's just something I think that all of us need to think about. What is white? What is it? Because look, here's the reality. And I did tweet this. The reality is that due to vanity, the vanity of white males, many who are Trump supporters, who for them, it means everything to be white. If they have children with a woman who's not white, they are going to want to pass on what they consider their power, their gift of whiteness to their children, whether the child looks like them or not. So in the future, I have a feeling we're going to have a society of people who are brown, people who technically, genetically, are not pure white, but who label themselves white. And it's just a very interesting thing, because you have a lot of these white supremacists and neo-Nazis saying, "Oh, we will not be replaced." And it's like, you know what? You're replacing yourselves due to vanity, because you're not being realistic about genetics, about DNA, about heritage, about what's what. The reality is, we are all human beings. The reality is that what races look like today are not what they looked like decades, centuries ago. And when you look into the future, humanity is going to look substantially different than it does right now, even. So we got to keep it real. It's funny because I just tweeted a very interesting opinion piece. I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, in regards to an Asian fetish being essentially a rite of passage for a lot of white supremacists and neo-Nazis and white nationalists. Apparently, quite a few males who are white, who have inferiority complexes and who feel the need to be racist and become neo-Nazis, they really are very attracted to Asian women because they view them as being incredibly feminine and very submissive, and quite a few other stereotypes which are not necessarily accurate. But when I look at that particular situation, it kind of is like white nationalism and white supremacy isn't really about being white. It's just about wanting to be the top of the food chain, wanting to be this super dominant, powerful male who's above everybody else, and that's it. I don't think that they're really looking at race, even though they are using the element of race as like an excuse or a mask. So I'll go ahead and conclude this podcast right there. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope that all of you have a good week. And I hope nothing else crazy or weird happens over the next few days or next few weeks, because this has been a bit much. I was very happy to see President Barack Obama make an appearance. I saw a little video clip on Twitter of him speaking this evening, and I had to retweet it right away. I was like, oh, he's back. Thank God. I can breathe again. And it seems that Michael Avenatti is still going strong. Michael Avenatti is very interesting to me. I had a dream about him last night, actually. He's very interesting. I really like him. I find him incredibly attractive. He's very elegant. But I finally understood today his rationale behind calling out quote unquote old white males. Because initially when he was saying it, I was like, oh, do you really want to go there, Avenatti? Because you appear to be a white guy yourself, but he's really just kind of saying, look, I need people like myself to hold themselves to a higher standard. And I can admire that about him. So I'm back on team Michael Avenatti. I think that he would be a good presidential candidate if he can kind of tone down the aggression a little bit, but I'm a fan. So that's all. Thank you once more for listening. And if you want to listen to archives of my show, just visit alexandramayerslive.com. Good night.